All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the candidate forum hosted by CNY Solidarity Coalition and Indivisible Onondaga County. We do still have people trickling in, partly because of the parking situation outside, so apologies for that. But we are going to go ahead and get started. So I'm Tom Keck. If you don't know me, I'm going to be moderating the event today. Let me start by acknowledging the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, on whose unceded ancestral lands we're all currently sitting and standing. So I'm just going to briefly go over the format and ground rules for today. Those of you who are used to our CNY Solidarity Invisible Onondaga County meetings know we often start with some announcements. We don't really have time for that today, but on the tables on either entrance as you come in, there is a little half sheet of paper that includes some important upcoming events. So please grab one of those if you have a chance. The event today is going to be split into two formats, or two sections, right? So for the first hour, we are going to hear from candidates for the Syracuse Common Council-At-Large seat. I'll introduce them briefly in just a second. And then for the second hour, we're going to hear from candidates for Onondaga County Legislature. These are not the only races in which there are contested Democratic primaries upcoming later this month. In the interest of time and candidates' availability and candidates' willingness to show up at our forum, these are the races that we're focusing on today. But if you go to CNY Solidarity's website, there's amazing info about all of the current elections with info about every candidate who is running in the Democratic primary. So I encourage you to check that out. There's information about the race for state assembly, featuring Mo Brown versus Bill Magnarelli. There's information about lots of about all of the pending elections. So check out that election info at cnysolidarity.org. The format for today is we're gonna invite each of the candidates to give brief opening statements where they can introduce themselves and say why they're running. Those will be limited to 3 minutes. Our good friend Jackie is here in the front. She's going to be our timekeeper. And then we have some questions. So this event has been organized by our electoral action team, done a ton of great work behind the scenes to make this happen. And so that committee has pulled together a couple sort of questions on behalf of the organization, which have been shared with the candidates. So we'll start with those, and then we will have some limited time for audience questions. It's going to be quite limited, for which I apologize, but we will, in each hour, we'll take at least one question from the audience and more if we have time. We also have distributed index cards. And so if you have questions for the candidates, especially if there's things that come up while they're talking, write down those questions. Pass them in before you leave. We'll have somebody going around to collect them, and we're going to collect all those questions together and share them with the candidates, and any answers they provide to us we will post on our various platforms. So that'll be our best effort to get as many questions answered as we can. We did this direction is probably going to be hard to follow in practice, but there are two different colors of index cards. And so if you remember this, put your questions for the Syracuse Common Council candidates on the yellow cards. So that's the first hour. Put your questions for the county legislature candidates on the blue cards. That'll just make it easier for us to sort them. So that. Okay. So without further ado, we are going to start. So again, this is the candidates in the upcoming Democratic primary for the at-large seat for Syracuse Common Council. So if you are a registered Democrat anywhere in the city of Syracuse, this race is for you, right? And we're going to hear from three candidates today, Helen Hudson, Moise Laub, and Cjala Surratt. And so we just randomized the order and we'll vary it for each questions. So for the opening statements, we're going to do Helen and then Moise and then Cjala. Helen, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Helen Hudson. As of right now, I am the incumbent Councilor-At-Large for the City of Syracuse. I have been a councilor for probably the past 12 years. I'm a lifelong City of Syracuse resident. I have one son that was raised here, and I have 4 grandchildren. I have been working diligently with the city on different tasks at hand. I've been a co-founder of Mothers Against Gun Violence. I'm co-founder of the Trauma Response Team, and I was a co-founder of the Hope Initiative, which from that initiative, we were able to push out money for the Financial Empowerment Center, which gives folks an opportunity to go and learn about finances and get their credit in order. I actually worked with the Hope Initiative, did the apprenticeship program called Pathways to Apprenticeship. It's where we work with the labor unions and get them to train unemployed and unemployed folks within the city of Syracuse. So those are 3 or 4 initiatives that I've been working really, really hard on.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Moise Laub. My family and I live on the east side for over a decade now. Many of you know me as your neighbor or someone raising a multiracial, multicultural family right here on the east side. Syracuse is my home. It's where I built my adult life, where my children were raised, and where my home base is. It's where I've invested my energy in community and public service. I was born in Haiti and spent my early childhood in an orphanage. I was adopted at the age of 12. I think that's important to mention. Growing up in a space with 50 other children taught me early what housing, safety, opportunity, community means for a child's future. I saw the power of people caring for one another, the lasting impact when systems seems to fail children's needs. As a Black child raised in a white family, I spent much of my life navigating different perspectives, experiences which taught me the value of listening, understanding, and finding a common ground. The Navy brought me to Syracuse. It taught me discipline, sure did, accountability, and commitment to service. And through the GI Bill, I was able to go to Onondaga Community College and later finish my master's at Syracuse University. What started as a place that I was stationed at became a place where I've built my life. Since then, I've spent my career in public service, in county government, federal government, and now working at the Syracuse School District and various other community organizations. Along the way, I've seen decisions made in meetings, rooms, or government offices show up in everyday lives of families trying to build a stable and successful future. Today, as the chair of the Cooperative Federal Credit Union, I continue to see those challenges and opportunities firsthand. Why I'm running? I'm running for the Syracuse County Councilor-At-Large because I've lived the many challenges so many of our families face. Housing instability, economic insecurity, and navigating systems that weren't necessarily built for everyone. My lived experiences, professional work, have shown me how deeply those issues affect every neighborhood, including my own. I want to be Syracuse. I want Syracuse to be a place where longtime residents can stay, where families can build stability. I'm committed to building a city where housing is stable, where families can thrive, and every neighborhood is part of Syracuse's future. Thank you.
We're over here like, we're watching that panel go up. Good afternoon. I first want to thank CNY Solidarity for affording us the opportunity to be in conversation with you prior to the June 23rd primary election. As I look at, I see so many individuals here who have had the privilege of organizing and doing social justice work with over the last, oh my goodness, 20 some odd years. But for those who do not know me, my name is Cjala Surratt. I grew up here in Syracuse over on Westcott. I graduated from the Syracuse School District, go Bulldogs. And I also love, oh, yes, right. Also love of Syracuse University. And for the past 15 odd years, I've worked in marketing, public relations, community advocacy, and community engagement in the arts and culture sector primarily. 8 years of that was the communications director for Lightwork and Video Project at Syracuse University. I've also had the opportunity to work with NISCA and some other arts organizations across the state. I've also had the privilege of working and continue to work on different boards and foundations across Syracuse and our region and state. One of which I'm particularly proud of is Voices for Creative New York, which is funded by the Mellon Foundation. And our charge is policy education and advancing policy, particularly for the creative economy. It's interesting. I keep going back and forth in my mind because there's been a lot of things that have shifted as I've walked and talked to people in our community. And my platform really reflects those things that I've heard as I've looked at grants over the last few years and I've been in conversation with family and community. And that is the things that are top of mind for residents really have to do with poverty and affordability, making sure that our youth are taken care of and that we're showing up for them. Workforce development. And my charge is really thinking about a diversification, not be single industry minded. We have to have broad opportunities for folks, particularly as a person who's working in the arts and culture sector. That's top of mind for me. Also thinking about safe and inclusive neighborhoods. We are living in a state where the reality is our friends and loved ones are being disappeared from these streets. Also thinking about that we want reliable and responsive city systems and good fiduciary responsibility within our city government. Why am I running for office? I'm running for office because we aspire to greatness here. We're at a very pivotal moment, but that also means we have to be direct and upfront about the challenges that we have. And some of those challenges are that we have 45.9% of our children living in poverty. 51% of our properties are not on tax rolls. Why? Eds, meds, and nonprofits, and a centralization of nonprofits in our city. We have to think about those things. I'm also thinking about that this is personal to me. Now, I listened to Moise and him talk about this city being a place of sanctuary. My husband came here after he survived the genocide in Cambodia, and not just found safety and community here, but also found a way to thrive and survive and have productive life here. I'm also running because the culmination of my experience, I believe, can be of benefit to this city. I'm going to be 50 years old in August, 50 years old. And I know that this city has poured into me, and I'm ready to reciprocate and give back to the city.
Thanks so much. Everybody's doing great on the time. Now it gets tighter. So for the answers to these next questions, candidates get 2 minutes each. Thank you, Jackie. You're doing great too. So as I mentioned at the outset, we have a couple questions that have been prepared by our committee that organized this event. And so for this first question, we're going to go with Moise, then Cjala, and then Helen. And the question is about good cause eviction in Syracuse. Do you support the legislation for good cause eviction? And why or why not? And tell us a little bit more about that. Thanks.
This has been a very hotly debated issue in the community. I support good cause eviction. If it was here today, if I was on council, I would vote for it. I think we've had enough discussion to know that our tenants in the city really need this at a time when housing prices have gone up tremendously. Micron is coming in driving prices. The tenants need some solution. It doesn't mean that we don't still work. Is that going to solve our problem? If we decided, we all in here know, passing good cause eviction is not going to solve the housing crisis. We still have work to do. We have to work to make sure codes is funded at the levels that they need to be. We have to make sure that we work on the rental registry, make sure it's updated. Working with tenants and landlords to make sure that providing them ways to bring their housing up to codes. We can also make sure that we work on more pathways to homeownership, right? There's some things that we can't do without, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we need to talk about some issues that are really gonna make change on top of good cause eviction, but I'm in favor of good cause.
I'm already on record regarding this. I answered this before the Common Council. We went through the interview process that I am for good cause. I'm specifically for good cause at 5 properties and above. I also concur with Moise that I think we need to make sure that there needs to be mentions of accountability. So often when I am working to advance policy, there isn't a funding mandate. So I concur on that we need to make sure that there is, that we are properly resourcing the departments that are in charge. And that means code enforcement and permitting and any other department that is integral to making sure that this policy actually is effective and showing up for those who are most disproportionately affected by it. I also think that we have to not necessarily be so siloed and zoom out and think that there are intergovernmental policies that we can look at. One of the other issues that we have is that there is opacity regarding some of who these landlords own. So in New York City, in New York State, I should say, they recently passed the LLC Transparency Act. So how can we leverage this to make sure that we can identify and then hold accountable these individuals who have people living in properties that don't just need a little repair? I'm sure that we have all seen in walking the city, people are living in horrendous conditions that are sometimes further exacerbating the conditions, are further exacerbating the most vulnerable people in our population. So it's thinking about how do we zoom out, look at all these other different policies that can be of benefit to us, but also making sure too that we are not being punitive to those who are doing what they're supposed to do. There are good landlords here, right? We need to make sure that those who are on the rental registry, make sure that we are also then holding accountable those other individuals who are doing things that are not helpful in our communities.
Yes, I do support good cause because I think for one, we need to be able to hold landlords accountable. And we need to stop and look at it. In the city of Syracuse, 60% of the folks are renters. And when you're talking about renters, you're talking about substandard housing. So when I look at it, it goes a little deeper for me. I do support good cause, but I think that we need to add on to luxury apartments because we just can't, go after the small landlords and not look at the bigger picture. Because we have buildings that houses 30 and up. What about them? When do we hold them accountable for some of these problems? I do support the good cause because, as Cjala said, we do have good landlords and we do have bad tenants. So we have to figure out a way that we can have a balance because it needs to be balanced out. We just can't hold everybody accountable for what one or two people do. So yeah, I am a supporter. I do think that we need to actually look at New York State law as well. There are laws on the books in New York State that would coincide with good cause. So I think that we need to look at all of that and make a better, balanced, equitable decision when we talk about housing.
Thank you. For this next question, we're going to go Cjala, then Helen, Moise. So I've lived in Syracuse for 24 years. Some issues come and go, but one issue that has been present for the entire time I've been here is that Syracuse has a lead crisis. Yep. If you're elected, what is your plan to address this?
The plan is to lean into that which is already happening. I had the opportunity to go to a neighborhood association meeting, and a gentleman was there and was presenting to the community about the lead abatement that is currently happening. I thought it was really wonderful because two things were happening in that room. A, that he was talking about, what was the plan and communicating that to folks, but also the question about prioritizing. And I was really happy to hear because we know particularly that young people are affected, that they are honing in on and focusing on doing the lead abatement where there are higher populations of youth and children. I thought that was great. But the other thing that I thought was really important is something that I heard knocking doors is that, can you communicate with us more frequently? Can you come to our meetings? Can you let us know what's going on? So if there are disruptions to our life, we can then accommodate. So those two things are really important. The other thing that I think is, again, zooming out and looking at our intergovernmental policies and knowing that Pam Hunter is currently working on a bill and an allocation that will release dollars to take care of 14,000 of our service lines that still need lead abatement. Now, are we ready? So when that allocation happens, is our infrastructure ready? Can we be efficient and be able to move forward when those dollars are allocated? So thinking about how do we show up and make sure that when these opportunities are afforded to us, that all of our infrastructure is prepared.
When you're talking about lead abatement, that's something that we've been discussing probably for the last 20 years. And we've been working closely with the county because at one point, the city had lost their lead fund. So we were working with the county to make sure that we did abatement within the city of Syracuse. So now we have recovered some of the funding, but we're still working with the county that we can abate the lead, and that's within the pipes. But when you're talking about the infrastructure, Are we really gonna be ready? Because our infrastructure is so old that I had at one point, they had brought a block of wood that they had in the pipes, that was what they used to run the water through. So we just have to be prepared when Pam's money does come down. We have to be prepared to know that we're gonna be ready. And when you're talking about everything works hand in hand, you're talking about infrastructure, but then you have to have employees that's gonna be able to work with infrastructure. So we've known that we've had our time getting employees. So we have to make sure that we're employment ready when we're doing the infrastructure for the land and the water pipes.
Syracuse has had a lead crisis. It's one of the most urgent public health and equity issues facing our city. Our water source, Kinne Lake, is clean. However, the danger is coming from the lead service lines and old housing stock, especially in neighborhoods where families are already struggling. Black and minority children in Syracuse are still far more likely to have elevated blood levels than that is acceptable. I recently heard the city of Newark working on trenchless technology. This is a way to kind of an initiative that would help provide where we can quickly, we don't have to wait years and years and years and years. Where you access or use of more trenchless technology means you don't have to dig up the roads. We can get it done much quicker. Another thing that I would do is provide a dashboard, right, that people can see live. Like, hey, what neighborhood is being done, when they're doing it. I went through the county's lead abatement program. I want to make sure that we provide, when you have to move out of your house because you're having lead abatement in your house, where they're going to put you. We need to apply resources for how the families are going to leave. Because I had to go back to the house every day, right? I mean, they did their work, but how do we make sure that the kids are safe? And something that's very important, if we're going to treat this like a public health crisis, we needed to make sure that just the lead pipes are replaced, period. We just need to provide a citywide pipe replacement program so that way no resident has to pay for it. We need to treat it like the public health crisis it is to make sure that our kids and our future stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. It's now time for a question from the audience. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. And my only requirement is that you please be brief.
A lot of people have said that when they're going to replace the lead pipes, the owner has to live in the house, and the people there are not the owners. Is there some way? Have they developed some way so that renters can let them in?
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just mentioned trenchless technology. Newark has been doing this. It's kind of like a system where they're able to sort of not clean the pipe, but kind of cover it. I'm not the expert in it, but what has been done there, they were able, without having to dig from whatever street, they're able to just use from one end. There's this specific type of trenchless technology that they can push in the pipes to keep it so that way there's clean water, it's not impacted, and we can do this kind of quicker. We don't have to wait. So there are technologies out there that we could probably use more of. Was that your question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can they get into the house and
they don't need to. This is the benefit of using newer technology to trenchless. You're not having to dig up the entire property or the construction. You can make things much quicker if we're trying to. We can follow the model that is already being done in Newark, New Jersey, maybe I think also in Rochester. So those are some things that I would suggest we do as well.
Cjala or Helen, would you like to weigh in?
We concur.
Yeah, we concur. They don't have to go into the house.
Yeah.
They don't have to access the house.
Most of the issues are with the service lines, which are not inside the house. They're under the sidewalk.
There's no need to access
Yeah.
the home.
Yeah. Let's take another question. And you want to give me one? Okay. The Syracuse Police Department has at times resisted being held accountable or addressing issues brought up by the Civilian Review Board. What is the proper role of the Common Council in this situation? Cjala, why don't you get us started?
So I will say that I organized the Spark at the CRB and resourcing the CRB is definitively one of the things that they were asking for. It is the charge of the common councilors to appoint someone to the citizen review board. I'm sure people have seen in our most recent news cycle, there has been a pause because of a lawsuit happening with PAV in Rochester. I think that I understand that there are legal mechanisms and processes that need to happen so that we are not in compliance. But I also say that the realities are is that to ask someone who has potentially been harmed by the police to go back into a system, to go into an internal review process does not make any sense. So I think there's a yes and. We need to figure out how we navigate through this lawsuit, but also understand that we need a mechanism to hold the police accountable, and there needs to be teeth. I would say that the pushback has readily been that because of HR purposes, a person doesn't necessarily have closure. We just know that there was some kind of reprimand. We don't know what it is. But I think that it is essential that we have some mechanism of accountability for this.
Great. Helen or Moise, would you like to weigh in?
So I've spoken to a couple people on the CRB. I think as a council or as a city, we all would want, even the police department, we would want to have an independent review process, right? I think that's something that's going to give the police department legitimacy, builds trust with the public as to what they're doing. So as a council, our role should be to help nominate somebody, also help be the leader in the room to have that conversation, have somebody come out and say, let the public know, what are we doing? What's the next step? Where do we go from here? You know, so I think as a council is being a leader, coming out forceful for CRB because it plays a very important role and it helps the police to give them legitimacy for the work that they're already doing. So that's what I have to say.
Thanks. Helen?
The council's role with the CRB, as was stated, is to make appointments. We make appointments to the CRB. CRB is an independent body. And I remember when we talked about changing the CRB, everybody lost their minds and said the council shouldn't have anything to do with CRB. So where do we draw the line? When does the council step in? Because in one avenue, people saying we shouldn't have anything to say about the CRB. But now that they've come up in, now we're in charge of actually helping them work through this process of going on a pause. So when we talk about the pause, we're still taking applications through CRB. But as far as investigations, that's on a pause because we're waiting to see what the appellate court says on the Rochester matter. So yeah, that's where we're at now. But we are still taking applications. We are still working with the constituents of the city of Syracuse with the police misconduct.
May I say something else? Am I allowed to say something?
Sure. Brief.
Very briefly, I think that it goes back to this issue too about infrastructure and properly resourcing. I was astounded to know that the PBA in Rochester, their budget was $3 billion. Ours was $368,000. So we are asking something to be effective with a very nominal means. I also think the question regarding having oversight within the Common Council, you are choosing someone. So it is your charge to make sure that person is indeed showing up. I know in speaking with the previous administration that part of the issue was they were not making quorum. As a person who runs different boards, the onus is on the individual to make sure that people are showing up so the business can be done.
Thank you. I have another audience question that's been handed to me. What role should the city play in ensuring that local disadvantaged Syracuse communities get employment for the micron construction and permanent jobs?
So this is an issue that I think is very important for the city. We have, while micron's coming here, some of the things that we always lack when we think about this is sort of wraparound services. So how do we make sure that people who are going to get the jobs are going to get to micron? This is all the way in Clay. We need to talk about transportation. How do we make sure people can get from their job, from where they live to micron and make it back in a, quick or decent amount of time? It's not taking too much out of their day and they're able to make it. We need to talk about childcare. You might have the job, but if you don't have childcare, then you're not going to be able to go get this work. Education, making sure that we're working with the school district and local colleges to make sure there's the right training, working with labor unions to make sure we're training people now for those jobs in the future. Working within the high school. We got to start before they get to maybe even middle school and then students starting in high school. We have a lot of good trade schools that we can probably provide more resources to that, so that way we're connecting the students. They need to see a pathway to those jobs. A lot of young people can't see themselves going to Clay for those specific reasons. They don't see they're getting a way to get there. They don't have the training that's kind of connecting them to get there. And it's just something that we don't provide the training for. So I think we need to think about, to prepare people for the micron jobs, we need to make sure we're working with the labor unions, making sure we're providing better transportation and access to childcare so people can go do the work. And also, childcare can help you, give you time to go learn something so you can go to the next job. So.
I don't know if there's much that I would add there. As I said at the top of the conversation, is I think it's wonderful that Micron is coming. We need a diversification of jobs here, but I do sometimes, I'm a little reticent that we are single industry minded, and I know that we have done this here in the past in Syracuse and have suffered the consequences because of it. I think that if we're going to be in conversation regarding what are the pathways for people into these jobs, we have to think about our tax base and fortifying our schools, because the realities are that if there are going to be articulation agreements with OCC, Syracuse University, and other schools, that we have to make sure that there are pathways from early education into those institutions first and foremost. I also think that you're correct in that we have to really hold responsible any industry that's coming here about transportation. I have the privilege of sitting on the downtown committee, and there was a really great presentation done by Centro regarding bus rapid transit, and that they are really beginning to say to these institutions and companies that want to come here that they need to make sure that they are providing transportation for the upcoming folks that are coming.
And I'm hoping with both of them, like how they said, I have to agree with that. But I'm hoping that when we start looking at talking about Micron is going to probably build in the phases. It's going to be within the next 4 to 5 years. So when you're talking about the education piece of it, you're talking about 8th graders now. That's going to be the ones that's going to take these jobs from Micron. So I think that we're going to have to continue to work with them in this education piece, and they're going to continue to have to OCC have a fabulous clean room that the kids can go up there and they can learn about it. Because CHIPS is the wave of the future, but I do agree with Cjala that we have to be more open-minded about our industry. We are EDS, we are mid, so that's our biggest industry in the city of Syracuse. But we have to be able to push our children into a pathway that's going to get them from being underemployed to fully employed. Because right now we have a lot of folks that are underemployed and unemployed that we're looking to push them into the pathways of employment.
Thank you. I'm going to give one last audience question real quick because it just came to me and it's important. And then we'll move into closing statements after that. So we spent a lot of time talking about housing so far, but one piece that we haven't directly addressed so much yet is about homelessness and the unhoused population in Syracuse. And so what's the scale of this problem, and what can city government be doing better to address it?
She said, give me the mic.
Again, when we talk about housing, we're talking about we need to, my little world, I would like to see all the empty buildings we have, okay? I think that there could be a way that we can renovate those buildings, we can rehab them, and we can start people off in those until it's time for them to transition out. We do have some populations where I know Onondaga, there's a transitional living, but it's very limited. We have to have more transitional living within the city of Syracuse to help house the unhoused. I mean, I have to speak frankly from experience. My son was one of those unhoused, and it was tough for him to get into housing because 1, his limited income, and 2, limited housing space. So we have to have more housing space that we can ensure that the homeless are housed. And I hate that word homeless. Yes. I hate it because we need to really start looking at our neighbors within the city of Syracuse that are basically unhoused and help them figure out a way. I don't care if it's tiny homes, I don't care if it's rehab houses, whatever it may be, we need to work together to try to get them housed.
You allow one question when they're home to stay. I'm 68, and I do. That's what my job
Let me just let the other candidates respond.
I think that we also need to, and it's one of the first conversations that I had with the chairwoman Nicole Watts, that we need to have a more robust conversation with our county. I have a business in downtown Syracuse, and it's a bank alley, and so I was very much engaged with the unhoused, but it also was extremely evident that these are individuals who had dreams and aspirations, right? But we are also navigating that they have mental health challenges, right? They are dealing with addiction. So how do we think about broader ecosystem in which people are being failed? They are being failed. I was very upset to find out that there was a time in our city, in our county, I should say, where there was a series of propositions that passed in our suburban areas, and they put a cap on care programs. They put a cap on having unhoused or people who are dealing with addiction. They pushed them into a city that, as I said, does not have a tan space. We need to share. We need to all lean in. These are your uncles and your cousins and your family as well. So that means that we need to be in better conversation, a more robust conversation with the county about taking responsibility, because we are collectively in charge of taking care of this community.
Yeah, I agree with Cjala here. I think that those who are unhoused, thinking about, we all are almost one accident away from being homeless, right? And so how do we make sure that we can, one, help people make sure they don't get in that situation, and when they do, we are there before they're unhoused for such a long time. It takes a long time to get back into another home. And I think we can work with different organizations that are like Tiny Home for Good or other organizations, but we need to have more solutions for housing and helping people. How do we help people bring resources together to become homeowners? How do we help people? You don't have to make $100,000, but how do we help those at the bottom? Maybe instead of giving the subsidies to larger developers, we can provide some of those subsidies to help people live and stay home, so that way they can take part in this equity that is going right now, right? Housing prices going right now. This is one way where we can help people get people out of poverty. We know housing is one way to do that. And mental health has to be a key piece to make sure that people have access to, not just access to it, but as a council, I see that we need to destigmatize getting help. We need to make sure that we're providing all the resources, working with the CCA and other organizations that are already at the front line of this work, giving them the money that they need to do. So I think that it's a couple of things. It's not just providing housing, it's making sure that there's mental health, that people have food, but let's try to catch it before it gets there. And let's make sure we catch it as soon as we see it happen, that those resources are there. And we don't make it so hard for people to access it or to get it. So I think that this is an issue that's very important of our time. And with Micron rising prices, it's pushing more people out. I-81 is coming down. People are moving out of pioneer homes. Where are they going to go? We need to make sure they have good housing, like Helen said, where people can stay. It's a good, affordable living for them, and they're not being pushed out of the community that they've lived in forever.
Thank you.
One more thing I want to add.
Come on.
Okay, real quick, look at the mic.
When Moise said, when he talked about subsidy should be afforded to the folks we're talking about. Because when you're talking about the income, the city of Syracuse, the median income is $25,000. So when you're talking about $25,000 on a $180,000 house, that's really way off the mark.
Yeah. So
we have to start looking at a better way to give subsidies to help people get into their own homes.
Thank you so much. So in the interest of time, we're going to move ahead to closing statements now. I'm going to start with Moise on this and then go down the row. But I do encourage people, we got a whole nother hour coming, and I encourage people to ask some of these same questions to our county legislature candidates as well. So that the candidates each have 2 minutes for a closing statement. We got a lot of Syracuse Democrats in the room. Why should we vote for you? Moise, you're first.
Why you should vote for me is because I'm somebody that I believe in this city. You know, Syracuse has welcomed me here and my family. As somebody that wants a city that provides a fair shot to everybody. And I've worked in 3 different levels of government. So I've seen the change that's about to come in terms of Micron, in terms of I-81. I have a master's in public administration, so I have a good insight into public budgeting. So I know how to make sure we're doing a fiduciary responsible, being very good with our money, but also my background, I understand a lot of these these different challenges that are facing people. I've lived that. I've been there, so being able to be empathetic to others, and that's something that I've always done, and I would like to do for the city of Syracuse. I'm glad your neighbors. I know many of you in here. I'm grateful for the conversations we've had. You know, I believe in the city of Syracuse. I believe in our neighborhoods, and we can build a Syracuse that gives everyone a fair shot.
I'll keep it brief. I think you should support me because so many things have brought me to this moment. I feel like I have tactically thought about, I've marched in these streets, I've shown it in nonprofit organizations, I've worked on a local, regional, and state level to advance policy. And I stood in my store several times, and I should say that's the only Black-owned bookstore in Syracuse. And when I look around and I see the history that has been afforded to me, I know that we're at a pivotal moment. And I know that this is a time in which we have to think about codifying. It is important, yes, to march and have the din and the noise of activation. We also need to make sure that we are holding our legislators, our representatives, those who seek to have us show up for their interests, that we are making sure that there are metrics of accountability and that there is policy in place. And so this is the next step in all those other things that I have done, because I am deeply, deeply, deeply appreciative to what this city has afforded me. And I'd like now to show up with all of those skills to advance us forward. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you all at the polls.
I want to say thank you, CNY Solidarity, for putting together this forum. Thank you very much. And why you should support me. I am a lifelong resident of the city of Syracuse. I have been on the boots on the ground for the past 25, 30 years. I came from a not-for-profit. I came from a United Way, which I know how important it is for these not-for-profits to be able to work with the community. I've created programs that's going to be sustainable, that's going to be able to help people work through their lives. So I'm thinking that it would give me an opportunity to continue to work on some of the things I started, working with the administration on the housing problem, working on administration with the policing problem, to keep working on these problems that have for years eroded our city. And this is not something that just happened. A lot of these things, they took time and they didn't happen overnight. So fixing them is not going to happen overnight, but we're going to have to continue to work on it. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is working on it together. So with all of you and all of us at this table, win or lose, we're all here to work together to fix the city of Syracuse.
Thank you. So for those of you who came in late, this is gonna, in just 1 second, we'll give another round of applause to these candidates. Our first hour has been devoted to candidates for the Syracuse Common Council at-large race. The primary election is June 23rd. Early voting starts on June 13th. If you're not sure where you're supposed to vote or when you're supposed to vote, Onondaga County Board of Elections website has amazing information there.
All of our materials are annotated.
We got materials over here from the candidates on the tables that you can grab, but nobody should leave yet because we got a whole nother second hour coming, but grab them on your way out. All of these candidates have people out there knocking doors, right? The primary is nearly upon us. So if one of them grabbed you and you're ready to jump in and help them out, I'm sure they would appreciate the help. And so we're gonna have probably like a 5-minute recess here as we move around. And there's some refreshments in the back. There's some beverages in the back, and some donuts. Oh, I didn't even know about that. So please join me in giving our thanks to these common council. Your way back to your seats. We're gonna get started again. I'm still Tom Keck. We're gonna have the same format for the second hour. We're gonna have the same format for the second hour. I'll introduce the candidates in a moment, but I'm gonna invite them to give 3-minute opening statements, introducing themselves. Then we have a couple questions already prepared, which they'll be invited to answer in 2 minutes apiece. And then we'll have time for at least a little bit of questions from the audience. You can write your questions down on the index cards and pass them in to one of the people wandering around collecting them. We are suggesting the blue index cards for these county legislature candidates. And depending on timing, I may also call on some people from the floor as well. Great, everybody make your way back to your seats, please. So the folks that we have with us here at the front now are candidates for county legislature. There are contested primaries in the upcoming June 23rd election for 3 of the county, contested Democratic primaries for 3 of the county legislature districts. We have candidates from 2 of those districts here with us today. Thank you, Jackie. We had also invited the candidates running for District 16. They were not able to join us. Some of them have offered to share some information with us in response to our questions, which we will distribute on our channels. But the folks who we have with us here, who I'm going to introduce, but I do need everybody to be quiet now in the back. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce here. We've got 2 candidates running for District 8, and the candidates can probably describe this better than me, but my understanding of the map is District 8 is like most of the west side. Is that basically right? They can say more about that if they want, but that is Tammy Honeywell and Chad Ryan. We have 2 candidates running for District 15, which I believe we are standing in right now. Is that right? District 15, if you look at the map, is like a crazy horseshoe shape. Thanks. Gerrymandering, right? So it's like got a big chunk of the east side and a big chunk of the west side and cuts through the south side to link them together. And those candidates are Joe Bennett and Bill Kinne. And so we'll start off the same way we did last time. So the mic's on the table, you guys should share it, pass it to each other. We're gonna go Tammy, then Chad, then Joe, then Bill for 3-minute opening statements. Tammy.
Thank you, Tom. I want to thank everybody for having us here today. My name is Tammy Honeywell. I am a resident of the Winkworth neighborhood, and we are in an affordability crisis. I know this because I grew up here. I'm a lifelong resident of Onondaga County. I worked in the Department of Social Services for over 10 years, where I saw where our most vulnerable residents are struggling and the gaps in services that we provide to our community and how our system is currently failing people. I also know because I was the executive vice president of the union that represented the county employees. I sat across from Ryan McMahon negotiating contracts for the members and fighting for their rights because it's an extremely toxic environment. I also know because I've organized in this community for over 15 years. A lot of you in this room know me from organizing in various capacities with many different organizations, fighting for human rights, first and foremost. We have too many residents who have been forgotten in our community. And I have also organized around housing, around healthcare. I think we need to pass the New York Health Act so people can have access to healthcare. And I've done labor organizing. I have organized around the lead poisoning crisis that we have here in the city. And I have also organized around ICE. For those who were at the ICE Out for Good protest back in January, I was one of the main organizers and the MC for that event. You've seen me in the streets probably quite frequently, trying to fight for our rights basically on the city, county, state, and federal level. And I've also organized around Tax the Rich because I believe that billionaires are spending too much money and they're hoarding wealth. And we have we need to be more class conscious. We need people to be able to afford their everyday living, and they're not paying enough into everything that we need. And if they were, we would be able to afford everything that we need for our residents here in the Onondaga County.
Chad Ryan. I am the current 8th District County Legislator. I grew up in the city of Syracuse, graduate of Corcoran High School. I reside on Tipperary Hill with my wife, Katie. I co-own the Edward J. Ryan and Son Funeral Home with my twin sister, Jillian. I served 3 terms on the Syracuse City Council and was elected last year after winning both the primary and general election. I came into this role with a simple belief: county government should be transparent, accountable, and actually work for the people it serves. As chair of the facilities committee, I've tried to live that out. We've gotten transparency on the aquarium, held a committee to learn facts, nail down dates and details, and grilled them about donors. When I joined the Friends of the Zoo board and they shared allegations of retaliation for refusing to fund that project, I gave them a public forum and a seat at the table. A resolution followed within days. When the county diverted $5.7 billion from the Greater Syracuse Soundstage to the aquarium project, I got the parties involved to the platform to be heard about what that money could have meant for our community. I'm running for re-election because we're doing the work. We're just getting started. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand up because I sat in the back for the first half and didn't see anything. So, I'm Joe Bennett. I'm a physics teacher at Nottingham High School. I've been a Syracuse City school teacher for over a decade. I'm a union organizer, a community organizer, fighting for safe and affordable housing, universal child care, and fast and free buses. And I'm fighting for these things because I've seen it every day. As a teacher, I see what my students are going through. They're living in terrible conditions at home. 1 in 10 of them are homeless, and now it's actually pushing to 2 in 10. They're watching their siblings not coming to school because they have to watch their siblings because there's not enough childcare. They're not making it to school, or they're not making it to their jobs because the buses aren't fast, they're not free. Their parents are missing their jobs and things like that. And I've also lived it. I grew up poor after my dad lost his factory job, his furniture factory job, and I moved 6 different times. I actually was put in a hospital because of my unsafe housing from mold. So I know what it's like. My mom joined the military to get us out of poverty. She was a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I know what it's like to live in these conditions, and I see my students living in these conditions every day. And I know that the county can do way more to make sure that my students don't have to deal with this every single day. My students and their families don't have to have terrible housing conditions, don't have to be homeless. They don't have to deal with lack of childcare or terrible busing. So we need to do more, and that's why I'm fighting. We have a $1.6 billion budget in the county, and we can do it. So thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, CNY Solidarity, for having this, and thank you for you people attending, because it's great to see people involved in the community. My name is Bill Kinne. Some of you may know me. I was a legislator I first got elected in 1991, served until 2012. I had an unfortunate major health issue, so I had to, 5 doctors tell me I should take it easy. So I became a legislative aide, which goes to show you my craziness, I think. But in 2019, I decided to run for office again because I didn't like what was happening in the legislature. I was told that it was time for us old white men to retire, but I said to them, well, you know, let the voters decide that, because I still feel I have something to offer. This time around, I received a phone call. I was enjoying retirement, but I like to help people. I was still taking phone calls and still seeing people in the grocery store, and they'd ask me questions. I'd send it to where they needed to go. So I thought I might as well do this again. The irony of this to me is that this is the first time my wife's been happy about it. I was blessed with 4 children. I grew up in the Valley. I'm a proud graduate. Sorry, Bulldogs, but I'm a proud Cougar. My children all attended city schools. They did quite well. They all got good scholarships to Boston College, Colgate, and Dartmouth. Thanks to my wife, they get the brains from her. I think poor is what's the definition of poor? My father refused to take food stamps because he didn't think it was right. I'm one of 8, and my father, I didn't see much of my father because he worked 3 jobs. But I did well. You know, I'm not perfect, I'm no saint. I did graduate from Arizona State University with a degree in criminal justice. I've been involved in the neighborhood since I've lived my whole life, but when I got married, I started doing things like I walked the crop walk with my family for years and years and years. I get calls now in the last 25 years to help elderly people shovel their sidewalks. I'm involved in a group called what do we call ourselves? I don't know, but we get calls to clean the sidewalks, for instance, at South Ave and Glenwood, because the city wasn't doing it, the snow. I just believe in community service. I believe in helping people. I've been honored to be a public servant. I'd like to go back and do it again, and I hope you'll consider me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For this first question, we're going to start with Chad and then go to Tammy, then Bill, then Joe. And so this first question is about housing. If you're here for the first hour, you heard a lot of conversation. There's a lot of concern in the community about housing. We have a housing crisis right now that seems only to be getting worse. If you're elected, what would you do to address the crisis?
Thank you. The number one issue across the board for anybody running for office, no matter what level of government you're at, the 2,800 unit number is real. I don't think the county government has treated it with the urgency that it deserves. Chairwoman Nicole Watts held a series of 6 housing and transportation engagement sessions following the legislature's inaugural municipal housing summit. The newly established Housing and Transportation Advisory Board, made up of subgroups and qualified residents, is a serious, inclusive process. And when those recommendations come forward, I intend to be fully supportive of the initiatives that come out of it. The legislature controls the budget. The county executive proposes, we approve. That's leverage, and I intend to use it. Depending on the result, recommendations coming out of this committee, I think there are several effective tools worth pursuing. First, increasing the amount of developers can obtain through the OCHIP program. It's not a perfect program, but it's a system that's up and running, and further incentivizing building matters. I'd also like to see some standardization of the zoning process across municipalities. That's probably the heaviest lift here. Getting buy-in from individual towns to see any zoning control is extremely difficult. So I think that you have to use the carrot, forming a fund that incentivizes municipalities to participate, tying it to a comprehensive plan, and offering something real in exchange for that buy-in. Finally, I'd like to see a construction loan fund established for developers, offering low interest loans to move projects forward. From my engagement in various forums, I expect this committee will arrive at similar versions of these approaches. These are the kind of tools communities across the country have used to tackle housing problems. I'll keep fighting for dedicated trackable housing funding in every budget cycle, and I'll be public about what we got, what we did. Thank you.
Okay, everybody else has stood up, so I have to too. We are in a housing crisis. We need a substantial investment in housing. We've heard some legislators say it before, we need an aquarium-sized investment in housing. We spent over $100 million on an aquarium, and we have a housing crisis, a lead crisis, and an affordability crisis. We need a new approach. And we also need to make sure that we're not leaving our current residents behind. Yes, we need to build units for the potential of Micron, but we have a lot of housing issues that we need to make sure we are taking care of, as well as building these new units. We need to, I agree with Helen when she said that we need to take our vacant buildings and see what we can do about making that into housing for people. We have a lot of vacant properties in the city of Syracuse alone that we could tap into to get this taken care of. We need to hold absent landlords accountable and help the city and towns fund and pass good cause, because it'll just help reaffirm all of the housing issues that we have. Again, yes, we need to build new units, but we have to do these things in tandem to make sure that we're taking care of people. We need to invest in codes and the health department, because we have a lead poisoning crisis, and we need to take care of the lead in the homes that people are currently in and in some of the vacant buildings that we We need to talk to municipalities about zoning because we need to look at different things that we can do. We have a lot of people who don't want to own homes, who do want to be renters, but we don't have adequate rental stock for people to rent. We need more 3-4 bedroom apartments for people to live in. And we need to make sure that some of these are being built outside of the city as well. A lot of these apartment buildings are being concentrated in the city, and we need to move them out to the suburbs. We need New York State to pass the REST Act, and we need to look at the land value tax and utilize our land space in the best ability that we can. Thank you.
Well, one of the good things about running this year is that the Democrats are in control of the legislature. And I think we're gonna keep control and maybe even pick up 1 or 2 seats. And the reason that's good is not because I don't like Republicans, because when I first ran for office, a lot of them voted for me, because at that time, this district was more Republican than Democrat. The problem I have with the Republicans is they really don't like the city. They've told me that. We don't want your problems out here. But this should be an issue for everyone in the county, not just the city, everyone. And what Chad said, all those things are good. But I want to point out something else, folks. We also have a mental health crisis in this community, a terrible mental health crisis. And I'm proud of the fact that I got 3 people into Tiny Home for Good. That's an organization that I love. I mow 5 of their properties, pick up their garbage, and mow their lawns because I believe in the organization. The sad part is, out of the 3 people I got in, 2 of them are working out great. 3rd one didn't. But it's not because he didn't want a place to live, it's because of his mental state. So housing is extremely important. Those things that Chad, our new chairman of the Legislature, is talking about, Nicole, are all important things we need to do. But we need to look more holistic, I think. We need to include mental health in there, because without both things, without good housing and good mental health, it's not going to last. So that's where I'm coming from. When I get in the legislature, I want to work on the housing, but I want to work on the mental health. It's something that we desperately need. Thank you.
So there's a lot of different ways to tackle housing. I'm going to mention 5 of them. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to all 5 within the time, but we need to look at our taxes, how we're doing taxes. We can do the land value tax that assesses how properties are, the value of the properties, now what's on them. So that's kind of like a carrot to get people to build on those properties instead of keeping it like a parking lot. And we can use the stick approach to tax luxury apartments. So making sure that people who are building, they're not just building luxury apartments, they're building affordable housing. We need to fund and expand the land bank. The county needs to give more funds to the land bank so we can seize tax delinquent properties and abandoned properties. And we need to transfer those over to people who are actually going to build affordable housing, like nonprofits, maybe even the county itself, having public housing. We need to have aggressive code enforcement and tenant protections. So that's one thing I heard a lot knocking doors, is that the code enforcement is toothless. It's toothless. So we need to do something to actually make sure that hold these landlords accountable, so that they're actually keeping the housing stock in shape, so that we don't have to keep buying or like building housing. We can repair the housing that we do have. And tenant protections like good cause. Maybe the county can incentivize towns and municipalities to pass good cause or rent stabilization programs. And then finally, OSIDA. I don't know if you've noticed, been paying attention, but the 4 new members on the board appointed by the Democrats, I think are going to do good work on OSIDA. So making sure that we're not just giving tax dollars away without getting money or things in return. So when we're signing agreements, giving tax abatements and things like that, we're going to make sure that they actually give that housing back to the community. They're going to build affordable housing, things like that. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Just hold on to the mic, Joe. We're going to start with you. For the next one, we'll go Joe, then Bill, then Tammy, then Chad. Our next question is about data centers. This is a big issue locally and also nationally. So data centers are going to have a large impact on our community. Some towns have been enacting moratoriums. There's been some state legislative debate about it as well. What should the county be doing to address this issue, Joe?
Yeah, so good on Lysander and Van Buren for passing the moratoriums. I think we need to do that at a county level. I know we can encourage municipalities to do it. We can't really do it for the entire county. I know some legislators that I met with already were looking to do a moratorium on county property, so we can control county property. So making sure that they're not building any data centers on the county property. I think the other thing we need to have really strict regulations and study them too on their impact of the utilities that they're gonna drive up our utilities. They're gonna destroy the environment. They're gonna create a big heat centers, and they're actually taking away jobs. A lot of people think, hey, they're gonna bring some jobs here. These are facilities for AI data centers. So the AI is actually taking jobs away. So I don't really buy the argument too that it's going to bring some jobs, and I think there's very, very minimal jobs even from the plan itself. So even with the studying and the regulations, I'm really nervous about having them here at all. I'm worried about our environment. I'm worried about our utilities. Our affordability is already through the roof, and when I knock doors, utilities is one of the things I hear about the most, I would say, or one of the most. So I just don't think Onondaga should have them at all in our county. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to hear Joe say that, but sometimes when I hear Joe talk, I'm not sure if he's running for the federal government office or the city council, because he's got some issues confused, in my opinion. However, this isn't one of them. These are not what a community needs, okay? They do not create jobs. Oh, yes, they build something that helps. I want to support the unions that make buildings, but overall, they're a drain on the community. They take too much water, for one thing. If you watched or followed the news, they approved one out in Utah, and the people were already complaining because they had got a shortage of water. So it's very confusing why people think these are good. I just want to say something though. The county can do certain things. There's certain things the county can't do. The code enforcement in the city has always been a bane of my existence, because all those years in the legislature, people would complain, and I deal with it. I talk to the people, but unfortunately, we have too many houses owned by people out of state. I'll give you an example. I'm a member of Chadwick Board, Chadwick Residents, down in Valley Drive. We help women and children. There's a house next door owned by a guy in Texas. I wrote him letters, he wouldn't respond. Codes wouldn't do anything about it. It was just a travesty. Finally, someone got to codes, and finally codes act. But, codes is extremely important, but it's a city job. It's not a county legislator job. You can work with the city. You can try to help them, which we should, which we haven't done enough of, in my opinion. But we can't control the codes. It's up to the city councilors and the mayor to do the right thing. So back to the question at hand. I'm not in favor of data centers, and I'm listening to the people. Thank you.
I'll just say, when we silo branches of government, people get left behind. So it doesn't matter who controls the department, we all have an obligation to make sure people are taken care of. First and foremost, I want to reiterate everything Joe said. We do not need data centers in Onondaga County. I think what Lysander and Van Buren has done is excellent. Utility costs are already way too high. If we have data centers here, it's going to drive those costs even more. It's going to have a bad impact on our grid, and it's going to have an even worse impact on our environment. We have some of the most pristine land and water here in New York State. Why are we talking about bringing data centers here? Why are we not talking more about the impact that Micron is going to have on our environment? Why are we not talking about our drinking water and everything else that's going to be affected if these data centers come into Onondaga County? I think, like I said, we need to work with other municipalities to make sure that we are putting a moratorium on data centers. They aren't providing jobs. They're taking away. AI is very dangerous in a lot of capacities. We also need to make sure that we are listening to the Onondaga Nation when it comes to things like this and environmental impacts on the lake and the land, because we are on stolen land. And if they do not want data centers here, we should not be bringing data centers here.
Onondaga County needs to be having a real conversation at the county level, not just leaving it to the towns to find out alone. Unlike some towns, we don't have the ability, which we've heard, to do the moratorium, but that doesn't leave us without options. Data centers bring tax revenue and almost no jobs. They consume enormous amounts of power and water. They generate heat and noise. Once they're built, they're here for decades. These are infrastructure decisions that deserve real scrutiny and are not automatically opposed, but they are difficult projects to get behind. Onondaga County has a resource we should be thoughtful about: water. We have a real water asset in this region, which is why all these data centers are going to be looking for us. I'd like to see our community benefit from this water without compromising our environment. If there's a way to do it responsibly, safely, and with real return for the community, we should entertain it. These projects are still in their infancy, and the concerns around water and energy are very real, but other places are finding ways to address them. Virginia has moved towards requiring using reclaimed wastewater for cooling instead of drawing from potable water. Lancaster, Pennsylvania negotiated a CBA requiring the developer to use clean energy, mitigate noise, support local employment, and contribute $10 million toward economic development climate goals. Oregon went further, requiring large data centers to operate to enter into long-term power purchase agreements and pay for any grid infrastructure upgrades they trigger, so those costs don't land on taxpayers. These are the kind of conditions that need to be on the table before anything were to move forward. The jobs picture is thin, some construction, some tax revenue, but if these projects want to come to our region, there needs to be meaningful benefit to the community. My recommendation: have the county facilitate a committee through a lanes committee, bring the town's utilities, environmental stakeholders, and develop a shared framework for standards, environmental review, and community benefits.
Thanks. We've got one more prepared question, and then we'll go to the audience. So for this one, we're going to start with Bill. So pass the mic on down. We'll go Bill, then Joe, then Chad, then Tammy on this one. And this is a topic that we talked about in the first hour as well, but we wanted to ask the question to our county candidates as well. And as I mentioned in the first hour, I've lived here for 24 years. This has been a persistent issue for the entire time I've been here. The city of Syracuse has a lead crisis. What can the county do to address it? Bill.
When I first heard you say that, I thought you were talking about our roads. Look, it's a travesty, in my opinion, that we still have lead pipes servicing our citizens. I've fought against it, spoke out. We are never in control. Now the Democrats are in control, and I'd like to see that be addressed. We can and should help them. There's houses out in the county that have lead pipe service too. Not many as a city, but there are houses out there. It's 2026. We ought to deal with this problem. There's no sense of waiting. I got a granddaughter in DC. I was down there 2 years ago. There are signs in the neighborhood saying, we're replacing your lead pipes. They did the right way. They took a neighborhood at a time, replaced the pipes, just kept on moving. That's the way we should do it here in the county. In my humble opinion, should support the city in this effort.
So this issue is really personal to me. When I first got into organizing and activism, this is what we worked on at the city level. I was with a few organizations that got the lead ordinance passed and the rental registry passed. And what we noticed though is lead actually got worse during the pandemic. There was kids staying inside during the pandemic, and landlords just break the law. So it doesn't matter what laws you pass. They're just going to break them, especially if the fines or the consequences are high enough. So we need to make sure that those consequences are high enough to actually force the landlords to do something about it, instead of just paying fees. Sometimes they're fine with just paying thousands of dollars, but that's kids' lives. They're affected for the rest of their lives. And as a teacher, I see this. So when I first got here, they said 600 kids a year were poisoned by lead, and that was mainly in housing. And before they found out that it was really in the lead, the pipes too. What the county can do right now is declare a public emergency, a public health emergency. Right now, they can do that. That would unlock federal funding. That would unlock inter-municipalities to work together. So they could do that right now. The other problem I heard is that they don't test kids enough. They kind of wait for the kids or the families to come get tested. So we need to ramp up testing. I know that there was a van that they had, and they would maybe park it somewhere to test some kids. Drive it to people's houses or something. We need to test more kids, and we need to hold landlords accountable. Those are two really big things I think we need to do. Thank you.
I'm gonna race through this. Syracuse has a lead problem. The county has a role in fixing it. The state just launched the lead rental registry. Syracuse is one of 25 communities named in that law. That's not an accident. It's a recognition of what's going on here. Nearly 1 in 10 kids tested showed elevated blood levels. The county health department is now the enforcement body for that registry in the 5 Syracuse zip codes covered by the law. I've met with the coordinator running this program. I know what the obstacles are. The city has an existing code enforcement system. The county is now running a parallel registry. We have duplication, we have gaps in coordination, and right now we have fines on the books with no mechanism to collect them. The last one is the biggest problem. It means good landlords are doing the work and bad actors are ignoring it with zero consequences. I'm working with Legislator Romeo on legislation to attach unpaid lead valuations to the tax roll. If you won't fix your property, it'll collect it through your tax bill. That's the enforcement mechanism this program needs to get going now. I'm also pushing for a formal agreement between the county health department and city code enforcement so we stop duplicating work and start dividing it. The city has infrastructure, the county has the state mandate. These two things should be working together, not around each other. I want a number we're accountable to. Units remediated per year, funding committed, outcomes tracked and reported to the legislator. Not a goal statement, actual target with consequences if we miss it. Most people affected are low income renters, communities of color. That's not a coincidence. It's the result of decades of under-enforcement, under-investment, and we've tolerated it for too long. Awareness campaigns don't fix it. Money, enforcement, and accountability do. Thank you.
We do have a lead crisis in Syracuse, and I have been on the front lines combating this issue for the last 10 years in the community. What that looks like is educating people on what they need to do if lead is in their home. It's canvassing and going door to door to talk to people about the lead crisis and talking to people and finding out what they need. It's making sure that our codes department is fully funded and fully staffed. These are good living wage union jobs, and that's where the money needs to be going to make sure that our departments are fully staffed so this work can be done. Same goes for the county health department. A few years ago, WIC stopped doing lead testing, which I think made a very negative impact on our community. They're saying it's because of the state health department. Well, as someone who works for the state health department, that is not true. The van that goes around hasn't really been doing any testing. From what I understand, it just kind of sits there and isn't really being utilized the way that it needs to be. A lot of the children that are facing these crises don't have access to a primary care physician, which is why the WIC testing is so crucial and important to discover this early. I've talked to too many people, too many mothers that have had their children poisoned by lead simply because their landlords aren't taking care of the property. And this is not even absent landlords who live somewhere else. We're talking about a man who was a real estate agent who owned a big business here locally and was not taking care of the property. We need to make sure that children have access to nutritional foods. And I'm going to do this by working with my community partners that I've been working with for over 15 years and making sure that the new lead program coordinator, who happens to be my son, is very well informed on this issue and gets things taken care of.
Thank you, everyone. So we now have time for at least one question from the audience. You can hand me your card or raise your hand. You want to speak publicly? You want to go ahead? You gotta use the mic.
Name's Howard. I didn't get a chance to speak about the lead issue or the lead pipe issue earlier when we had our council. And I wanted to say that we're talking about some situation in Newark, New Jersey, that they could send a thing from outside the house to repair the pipes inside the house. It's impossible, but you guys know more than I do, apparently. You gotta come inside someone's house to fix the issue in their house. Else you're sending something else in their house. We're sending smoke and mirrors to the people. It's not the truth. Another thing, this lead issue with kids, we're hollering this landlord. Part of it is his landlord. I am a landlord. I have a daycare next door to my house, which I own both of them. And I had to change all the painting and peel the lead off the window seals to prepare it so it can take new paint. It's not lead, base paint. I am a lead remover. I got the certification to do it myself. I had paid other people because I had a stroke since then. We're telling a lot of stuff. The government is allowing a lot of propaganda to go by. There's no truth in this stuff, but it pacifies the people. We got to stop doing that.
Let's give the candidates a chance to respond. Thank you.
I guess I'll look for a little clarification on the question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a specific question you want them to address? It's so that I know there was a question about the lead service pipes and access to the property. We had that question in the first hour.
So lead service pipes are obviously a huge infrastructural issue. I think the municipalities just need to start replacing, and that's going to take a long time, but the funds need to be set aside for that. I think there can be informational campaigns done, in the immediate time with transparency on, I was talking to a water engineer last week about this, and when water sits in the pipes overnight, you wake up, you open that pipe, and you take a sip right out of it right away. There's probably some lead in there. If you run it for a few minutes, you probably do it okay because it's past that. It's from the lead sitting in your pipe. So, little informational about that. If you know you have lead pipes and you got little kids and things like that, taking some of those tricks in the short term. But I absolutely think municipalities should put, funds towards replacing these pipes.
Thanks. And I think part of the question was also about, like, we have people in the community who maybe are not trusting the information that's come in from the government. Is that, to have that right? About lead and public health more generally?
We were talking about the issue earlier about
That's okay. We'll come back. Yeah. Are you on the same topic?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is that there was an alternative way rather than replacing the pipes, and you're not trusting that is really good. That what are you putting in the pipes, and are we going to have a backlash from that?
It's already processed. You put it in their water system, not that chemical.
Do the other candidates want to speak to this issue? Yeah.
I had the opportunity in 1983 to buy a two-family house on the street I grew up on, Ostrander Ave. I did it for several reasons. I knew the owner, he was going blind. But the point of the story is this. I was very young and naive. When I went to the house, the second floor, there was almost no water pressure, none. I'm not a big fan of coating the inside of the pipes. I think that doesn't work. I had to replace all those pipes, and I took out the old galvanized pipes. You can see a pinhole. There's a pinhole going through there, and all that rust and stuff is no good for anybody. So, sir, I'm in favor. It's going to cost money, absolutely, but the people need help. The lead line should be replaced. And if you've got lead pipes in your house, or galvanized pipes, they call them, they should be replaced. If people need help, we should help them. Maybe it's a low interest loan or something, but it should be out there. to do, because it's just not just replacing the lead service pipe in an old house doesn't help very much. You gotta replace all the pipes. And I prefer copper over plastic.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you for putting in the work and remediating that, because that's like a big deal, and I feel like a lot of landlords don't do that. So you saved kids being disabled for the rest of their lives, possibly, you know. Yeah, so I would say too, with the lack of trust in government, I totally understand that too. I think when there's projects being done, our government needs to do better at letting people know what is being done, how it's being done, and how it's going to affect them. Just recently, for example, I got like a speed bump in front of my house, which I'm all for having a speed bump in front of my house, but no one ever really came to my house and said, hey, we're doing this, you know, how is it, this is how it's going to affect you, this is what you're going to deal with for the next few days. So our government needs to be better about letting people know that when they're doing work, that people around the area know that it's being done. I knew some people who just said, oh yeah, well, we had a public meeting and that's it. No, that's not good enough. You can't just have a public meeting and say, yeah, that's everyone knows about it. You need to go to their houses. People have families, people have 2-3 jobs, kids, they can't always go to these public meetings. So I think communication is really key in how we're doing this. So thanks.
Thanks, Tammy.
I also agree, as a public servant of over 15 years, I completely understand why you do not trust government and what they tell people, because they have failed us for way too long, and that needs to stop. And that's why having these relationships with people who are working in this department, making sure that things are getting taken care of, working with organizations like DSA. For those who don't know what that is, the Democratic Socialists of America, where we are constantly hitting the streets and making sure that people are informed about what's going on a lot of different issues facing the city. I know that Sharon Owens is working hard to try to get these pipes replaced. It is my understanding that they do not have to enter your home to do that. But I also think that if we had stronger accountability measures for the landlords and the properties that are having these lead issues on the paint side, we would have the funds to make sure that we could do this quickly, to make sure we could be fully staffed in our departments to get this work done. So I would love to talk to you more afterwards.
Thanks, Tammy. I have another question. I have another question from the audience, which is, what can the county be doing to make utilities more affordable? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. So first, I think we have a bunch of government buildings that we can directly put green infrastructure in. We have control over those buildings. We can put solar panels on them. Any property that the county owns should be turning green, and that's going to save us money in the long run. The other thing is we can maybe directly negotiate with these solar farms as a county. So that way it's not individual, like, oh, you have to sign up, you have to sign up, you have to sign up. The county can directly negotiate with these solar farms on behalf of the county. And that gives us more power to actually negotiate cheaper prices. There's a lot to be done at the state level too, and I would push for that. Like, for example, I would like our utilities to be publicly owned. They're a service. Everybody needs utilities, just like we need water. Everybody needs electricity. So I would push, our state representatives to make sure that our power is public.
We're seeing more and more that these big corporations are just taking and taking and taking from people. I understand that what we're doing to the grid is causing the rising costs of utilities. However, how much does the CEO of National Grid make? How come this money isn't being reinvested in our communities to do the things that Joe was talking about? Municipal electric and gas is something that we should strive to see if we can get there. You look at Solvay. Solvay has done it for a long time. even though even their rates have gone up because they have to purchase some of this from National Grid. I don't think that one company should own all the rights to our power. And I think that even though we need to build more of our solar infrastructure, I think we need to try to move away from the solar farms and utilize the actual buildings, like Joe said, that we have available. There's no reason why we wouldn't have enough space to put the solar panels on. If we're utilizing land like we are to build these panels, we can be causing more of a climate crisis in the long run. In some areas, it may be necessary and it may be okay, but we need to be a little bit more cautious about where we're building these farms and what the impact is around them.
I think we need to look at this from every angle we can. I think, there's some concerns about battery. Those are going to be coming up here shortly. They're going to be looking for sites all over the county. You look at a site like Ross Steel down there, the county controls, that is dump land, and it's in a pretty good spot if you want to not rent any NIMBYism. We also need to try to tackle this at the state level. I think that's the number one avenue, is to advocate for more methods of trying to get solar, to get wind, to get all this stuff.
Well, thank you, Chad. That's what I think. I think we've been at disservice from the Public Service Commission, and I think the state should step in and help us more. But we do have an aging grid. We are way behind, and we need to have a strong grid for us and for our children. Why are we leaving the bills for them? I have a real problem with some of the things my opponent's saying. Nothing's free in life, folks. Nothing's free. If I want an ice cream at Gannon's because I'm addicted to it, I'm going to say, Joe, would you buy me an ice cream? Joe's a nice guy. He's going to buy me an ice cream, but it's not free. He paid for it. Our state is in debt, $233 billion. Our federal government's in debt, $39.2 trillion. These things are serious concerns, and we need to look at it. Here in the county, we have a good budget. Should we take some of those funds and help people? Absolutely. And I believe that's what the Democrats are going to start doing now that they have the power. But as far as electric rates, I have to pay them too. I have my highest electric and gas bills ever. And I've got an old house that's not insulated very well. So in January or February, I paid $508 or something like that. That hurts me. So I want to lower the rates, but I think we need help from the state. We need a better Public Service Commission. Thank you.
Yeah, let me respond to that. Actually, so there's a difference between profit and providing a service. Just letting you know. So, yeah. We don't have the fire department as a profit. Somebody's not making millions of dollars off the fire department coming to my house to save it. We don't make profit off of water. Electricity is the same thing. People shouldn't be profiting off of things that we need, like electricity. So there's a difference between profit and service.
Thank you. So it just took a minute. We're going to move towards closing statements. If you have a question that did not get answered, please put it on a card and get that to us. And we're going to get those questions to the candidates, and whatever answers they share with us, we'll post on all our channels. Before we move to closing statements, I just wanted to, we have at least one candidate in the June 23rd primary who's in the audience and has not been up on stage. As I mentioned, and I just want to give him a word to introduce himself. As I mentioned at the top, right, there's multiple races on the June 23rd ballot. We didn't have time for all the races on the forum here, and also not everyone got back to us. So of course there's a contested primary, as many of you know, for the 129th Assembly District. We invited Maurice Mo Brown and Bill Magnarelli to join us today. Magnarelli did not get back to us. Mo did and said he's happy to participate. And then we said, well, we don't got Magnarelli here, so we're not putting you in the program. But he's here anyway. And so, Mo, please introduce yourself.
Thank you all. Thank you, CNY Solidarity, for putting this together. Good call, Tom and team, by not making me come up here and speak to an empty chair. But no, my name is Maurice Brown. Some of you know me, but I'll be brief. Fundamentally, I think housing, healthcare, and education are human rights, and I think the role of local government is to protect those rights. And right now, I'm running because I feel like those rights are under attack. I think most obviously, most noteworthy, we're seeing it from the federal government. But the state of New York is our best vehicle to protect Central New Yorkers from the federal government. So I'm running for state legislature to make sure that we're protected. If you want to learn more about me, you can visit my website, www.electmauricebrown.com. However, there's going to be several debates between Bill and I this week. We'll start filming tomorrow, but the first one will air on Tuesday. It will be Jim Reed. There's also going to be one by the Post Standard, one with Grant Rear, and another one hosted by NAACP on Tuesday. If you have questions about those debates, there's a link on my website, electmauricebrown.com/debates, but you can also just grab me. But thank you all for being active participants in democracy. It only works if we all get involved like this, so I appreciate you all doing it.
Thank you, Mo. We're gonna move now to 2-minute closing statements, and the order we have for that is Chad, then Tammy, then Bill, and then Joe. So Chad, you're up.
I'm running because we're just getting started. This term, we've been fighting for accountability and transparency. I've used my platform as chair of facilities to do that work in real time on the aquarium, on the zoo, on every capital project where the public deserves a voice. We're fighting for real accountability and housing dollars in the budget, not line items that disappear into the general fund. We have redistricting reform on the agenda. It will pass. We're working with county legal right now to get the votes to make it veto proof. And we're on track to take it to the voters in November. A constitutional amendment that takes politicians out of map making is good for everybody. Shout out to Elaine again for her help on that. None of that happened because we showed up. It happened because we used every tool we could: committee hearings, public forums, the budget process, to force accountability when they would have rather been quiet. I'll keep doing that, not just for the next term, but on every issue this community cares about: housing, lead, PFAs, micron, food insecurity, data centers. Whatever the next fight is, we'll be ready for it. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody again for being here and CNY Solidarity for putting on this forum. We have seen what is possible by watching Zoran in New York City. We can have that here in Syracuse. We can do the same thing. Instead of being #1 in child poverty, we can invest in people and fight for human rights. Too many marginalized communities are suffering and are in the line of sights of our federal government, and we need to be doing everything we can to protect them. We need to invest in people, and we do that by understanding their struggles and having them at the table. We do not need to keep doing the same thing over and over again. We've all learned that doing the same thing over and over again just gets you the same results, and we don't see anything different. We need something new. We need new ideas, new ways to go about getting things done. And I would look forward to speaking to people some more and getting your vote on either June 13th through the 21st for early voting, or on June 23rd at the primary. But thank you again for being here. And again, I have been working on a lot of these issues for at least the last 10 years. So I have inside knowledge as to how the county government functions, and I have outside knowledge as to how it's affecting people. I have relationships with the community in various capacities, department heads at the county, and I think that's information that we need to bring to the table and utilize to make sure that we're doing everything we can for people.
Once again, thank you for CNY Solidarity for having this meeting, and thank you people for coming out. I've got a record of public service, and I'm proud of that record. If you call me, I'm going to get back to you. I might not have the answer you want, but I'm going to get back to you. If you stop me on the street, I'm going to get back to you. That's what I think public service is about. I've got a track record doing that. and I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm gonna say something that needs to be said. My opponent's a very nice guy, but the meetings of the legislature are during the day. I don't know how he's gonna make the meetings if he's fortunate enough to win. Even though I'm one of the people in the legislature for years trying to pass a resolution to have at least 4 night meetings a year out in the county. And it's like, if I'm lucky enough to get elected again, I'm gonna push that again. The other thing is, I followed the rules. There was an article in the paper recently about Joe and me and our candidate, our campaigns. He didn't file a financial disclosure report. You know what? The law says we're supposed to do that, so I did it. So I'm wondering what Joe is trying to hide or what he's failing to do. Now, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe he was just an oversight. But if you're going to be a legislator, you got to follow the rules. If you're going to be a legislator, you got to answer the people. We're not always going to agree on everything, but I will answer you and I'll tell you why I disagree with you. I've been lucky. I've been blessed. I'm proud of my record. I'm just asking you for another chance to go back and expand on that. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you all participating in the democratic process and being here and listening for hours. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate CNY Solidarity for putting this together. If you want somebody who is going to listen to you, I'll be there. But if you also want somebody who's going to fight for you, I will be there. I've been the last 10 years or more, I've been in the streets. I've fought against anti-racism. I fought for reproductive health. I fought against ICE. I've been in the streets for more than a decade. And on top of that, I've been pushing for policies. I've been meeting with legislators. I've been doing this work for a long time. And now I'm going to do it in the legislature. I'm going to fight for safe and affordable housing, universal childcare, and fast and free buses. And I'm doing that because I see my students dealing with those issues every single day. Every single day I'm interacting with students and their families who are dealing with these issues. Every single day I'm working. So if you want somebody who's gonna reply and gonna respond to you, great, I'll be there. But if you want somebody who's gonna fight for you, I'll be there too. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So in just a minute, I'll ask you to join me in thanking our candidates one more time. But first, just a couple quick final announcements. So again, this event was hosted by CNY Solidarity Coalition and Indivisible Onondaga County. If you're new to us, if you're not familiar with us, make sure you sign up on one of the tables on your way out if you haven't done that already. We'll get you on our various communication channels. If you know other folks who are interested in the upcoming primary, but don't know who to vote for in some of these races, we've been recording this and it's going to be posted shortly to CNY Solidarity's YouTube channel. It'll be linked from the website. It'll be linked in our Tuesday newsletter or soon, whenever the recording's ready. The election is Tuesday, June 23rd, the primary. Early voting starts on June 13th. And then my last announcement, and this is for folks in the room who are members of Indivisible Onondaga County. So the main purpose of this event was just to provide a forum for community members, whoever you are. We don't care if you're members of our organizations, just folks to come hear from our candidates and learn more about who's on the ballot. But I will say that Indivisible Onondaga County is in the middle of an endorsement decision. If you're not familiar with our organization, historically, we endorse in some but not all races, depending on how well we know the candidates and how strongly we feel about them. And so our steering committee, sometime very shortly, is going to issue some proposed endorsements, and then we're going to have a Zoom meeting this week on Wednesday evening. So the details on that will go out in our newsletter. So if you want to weigh in on those proposals, that will be your last opportunity to do so. You can also just find me and grab me on the way out if you want to weigh in personally with me. I'm Tom Keck. So if you're not if you're not our members and you want to be, then just get to me and make sure I got your contact info. Okay, so with that, are we good? And props again to our electoral action team, especially Joanna, made this event happen. And then one more final round of applause for our candidates for sharing their